I want to welcome you to another episode of the Darin Sargent Show. Thanks for tuning in. This is the podcast where you get life advice from a single-handed perspective. I want to say, before we get too deep into the woods today, I want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed on YouTube. We are now live on YouTube, not only our podcast, but digital devotions. We've got some motivational, inspirational YouTube shorts and thoughts. More to come. Great things happening. So if you haven't yet, go to youtube.com/@Darin Sargent Leadership. I would greatly appreciate it. Subscribe. Hit the like button, share it with someone, but go over to YouTube, check it out. I think you'll find some things that can be of help to you, and that's what this is all about. Just want to be a help. On this episode of the Darin Sargent Show, we're going to be talking about monuments and movements. So stay tuned. Let's get started right here on the Darin Sargent Show. Thanks for tuning in. My wife and I recently had the privilege of speaking at a marriage conference and a couple different churches in the Washington, D.C. area. And as we flew in, as we were driving around D.C., I was reminded all over again of the beautiful history that our nation has and the many things that constantly remind all of us of those who sacrificed so much for us to enjoy the freedom that we now enjoy and possess. Monuments are important symbols to the history, the culture, and the identity of a nation or even a people. As we flew into the D.C. area, I noticed the various monuments that have been built that symbolize different moments in our history. For instance, I looked out the window and there was the Washington Monument, beautifully lit up at night. It stands as a symbol to our first president of the United States of America, George Washington, and really it stands for even much more than that. There was the Lincoln Memorial, a memorial that reminds us of the struggle for equality for the human race. There's the World War II memorial, the Vietnam Wall. So many that are really too numerous to mention, but they have all been built and placed where they have been placed to remind us of our history, where we've come from, what our past has been, what brought us to where we are today. They almost pay homage to the heroes, the events, and the ideas that have shaped our world. If you were to go to New York City, you will see Lady Liberty standing tall out there in the bay with her lamp lit for all that may want to find a better life. And there's an inscription on the Statue of Liberty that reads this, and I love this inscription. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. It's a beautiful inscription. It speaks to what our nation is all about. Now, monuments are a tangible reminder of our past and our present. And I believe they can even stand for what we strive for our futures. They help us remember the poor, the people, the places, the events that have shaped our nation, our world for the better. They can even remind us of the power of collective action and the importance of working together as a people for something that is better for generations to come. Now, even in the Bible, we are introduced to monuments. There are many that I could talk about, but one comes to mind. Joshua has led the people over the Jordan River. They are going in to possess the promised land. They have spent 40 years in the wilderness. And he tells the people, he says, get 12 stones and set up a memorial. put out a monument in the middle of the river so when you pass by this place and your children ask, Dad, what do these stones mean? Mom, what are those stones in the middle of the river? What do they mean? You could tell them the story of what God did that helped them get to where they were. Simply put, monuments, they are important. However, you and I can't just have monuments in our lives that only tie us to yesteryear, that only remind us of what once was. I'll get the words out eventually. They are important, but if we are not careful, we can live in the past, we can talk about the past, we wish we could go back to the past, and we'll never move beyond where we currently find ourselves. Now, I believe that it's much easier to settle in for what once was than it is to move to something we do not yet know will be. It takes less effort to reminisce than it does to reach. In Genesis 1, this is interesting. Just follow me for a minute. In Genesis 1, we are introduced to a creative God, a God that speaks worlds into existence, a God that created all that exists. And our first description that we find of God is that he is a God that creates. But not only is he a God that creates, he is a God that moves. Because the scripture says that in the beginning, God creates the heaven and the earth is without form and void, and darkness is upon the face of the deep. And it says the Spirit of God moved upon the darkness. Now, I want you to catch that. He moved. He didn't just stand still. He didn't just show up and remain in a posture of passivity. He moved, he spoke, he worked, he acted, even in the face of an obstacle of nothingness, even in the face of something that was not yet formed, he moved. Let me just say this. I believe that our God is not a monument. He is a movement. He is not just some God of yesterday. He is the God of today. This moment, this situation, your trial, your trouble, your struggle, whatever it may be, he's that type of God. He is a movement, not just a monument. Yes, God stands for a lot of things. Yes, I can think of God and his strength is a monument. He is a tower, a refuge. He is something that is stable and secure. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever, but he is also a movement. Throughout history, there have been movements that have risen up in order to change the current culture or the current climate. We see it even in biblical history. We see it even in our world's history. People who, like Moses, who led a movement to get people out of the confines of bondage to a place of freedom, a promised land, a promised place. You see, here we go. God never intends for you to settle into the place you may find yourself today. He wants you to move forward, to move into your destiny, to fulfill your purpose, to constantly be moving. That's why your feet are faced forward. Your nose points forward. It's easy, let's just be honest, to settle for the comfortable approach to life, to just exist. It's easy to rest on our laurels. And I don't even know what laurels means. I probably should have looked that up. It's easy just to rest on our laurels and watch the world go by. It doesn't take much to sit. I've said this often. I would rather serve than sit. Let me put it this way. I would rather get up and move than just be motionless. It requires much more to get up and to move forward, to refuse to settle for average, to refuse to just put up with our current situation that has caused us to become status quo. Go throughout history and you will see individuals that chose to do something even though others refused to do anything. And I think this is what often happens to us. We are afraid because of what others might say or think about us. Well, if I act on what I feel to do with my life, so-and-so is going to say this, and my family member is going to mock me. And now, let's just get personal. Here's my podcast, so here we go. I had to overcome this early in my life. I was born different, as you can see. I believe even though I was born different and unique, there was a unique destiny that had been placed on my life because of my birth. It doesn't make me better than someone or less than someone. I had to move beyond the defining attributes that are often placed on people that were born like me or with differences. And I had to say, I'm going to move beyond this. I'm not settling for this stigma. You can put me in a category of disabled or handicapped if you want to, but that's not where I choose to be. You see, I believe that God created each of us to move into our purpose, so you cannot settle for just being a monument of what once was. I believe there's so much more for each of us. You know, I feel as if sometimes we achieve something and we arrive at some victorious place, and boy, we set up a monument. There's nothing wrong with remembering where you have been, but if that's all you do, if you never move past that accomplishment or that success to the other things that are in front of you that God has for you, you will never truly be everything that you were created to be and that God desires for you to be. Let me just say this, okay? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I want to make a difference with my life. And I believe you do too. You as well want to make a difference. You wouldn't be listening or watching this if you didn't. So in order to make a difference, you may have to face the ridicule of others, the mockery of those that poke fun at what you may be attempting to do. You may have to put up with someone making snide remarks about you trying to make a difference in the lives of others. Let me just give you an example, okay? Here we go. For years, I have been speaking, I have been preaching, I have been talking to young people and adults and young adults. It's brought me in front of a lot of people for which I am grateful, and I am so thankful, and I'll continue to do so. I'll continue to take opportunity to speak, but I can only be one place at one time. I don't have the ability I don't have the superpower to be everywhere at once. So instead of settling for minimal impact by being one place at one time only, I look for avenues to get the message out that I believe God created me for. That is why I do this podcast. That is why I have a YouTube channel. That is why I use the various streams of social media to get the word out. I'm not just settling for one method of making a difference. I want to help someone. And if that means I have to stretch myself, if that means I have to move beyond where I am, so be it. No matter what someone says, no matter what they may poke fun at, no matter what they may try to throw at me, let me just say this. Most people that mock you do it because they aren't doing anything to make a difference themselves. And your attempt at making a difference reminds them that they are settling for less. And what you are doing may be making them uncomfortable with the monuments that they have been standing around or just settling for years. You remember when I did this? Remember what it was like then? You know, we've got to get to a place where we recognize we weren't created to sit still. We weren't created with the luxury of not being challenged and changed in order to make a difference in the lives of someone else. So very simply, what are you waiting on? Are you going to be a monument always reflecting on what once was? Or are you going to be a movement that stretches out to what could be? Are you a monument? Or are you going to be a movement? I hope that you will take these words today and you will let them challenge you to push past your limits, to push past the status quo of life and be what you were created to be. Let these words today, this podcast, let it stretch you to think beyond what you have always been confined to. See, I think sometimes we let other people's opinions of us limit us. You've got to overcome those limiting things that are keeping you locked into a place of passive living. You were called to make a difference. You were called to change your world. You were called to turn your life into something that is effective and powerful. Why do I know that? Because God created you for that. Well, I don't have the talent or the ability. Well, I can't do sign language. It's a struggle to even tie my own shoes. Hello? Get up. Move. Get off the couch of complacency. Get off the couch of just being comfortable. Get away from the status quos of life and stretch and move, because you were created to be a movement, not just a monument. Thanks for joining. Make sure you check out youtube.com/@Darin Sargent Leadership. If you're listening to this on the podcast, thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe, share it with others, rate, review. As I said earlier, go to the YouTube channel and check it out. So glad you've joined us. Have a great day and keep on trucking. Keep on moving. God's got good things in store for you.